Jule, I'm Sonam Spalzin. I'm a teacher at Government High School Shara, and I'm being appointed by Department of Education UT Ladakh to give classes. For today, my topic is life processes. We will discuss about all the life processes in these classes. So let me begin by a little introduction of the chapter. What is life? Our planet Earth is the only planet where life is possible. So our planet Earth is unique in its own way, and the living beings on our planet Earth, they live, they grow, and they die, and eventually they become part of nature. Right, so living beings are differentiated from the non-living entities on the basis of various parameters. These parameters are known as life processes. All right, so what are life processes and why are they important? Life processes in matlab maintenance of organisms is essential. जब भी organisms या तो move कर रहा है या rest कर रहा है या sleep कर रहा है, जब भी maintenance की ज़रूरत होती है, क्योंकि human beings हो या living plants हो या कोई भी organisms हो, their body should always function. And if we define life processes, it can be defined as the processes which together function in the maintenance of an organism. The processes which together function in the maintenance of an organism is the definition, almost the definition of life processes, and we have many examples of life processes like nutrition, respiration, excretion, circulation, about which we will discuss one by one in our coming classes. All right, so there are many types of organisms, as you all know, that there are unicellular organisms and there are multicellular organisms. The unicellular organisms means organisms which are formed of only single cell. For example, amoeba. In these organisms क्या होता है, ये जो सारे functions होते हैं, ये जो सारे life processes होते हैं, जैसे कि nutrition, जैसे कि respiration, वो सारे जितने भी functions होते हैं, जितने भी processes होते हैं, is performed by a single cell. All right, so in unicellular organisms, all the activities are done by a single cell, whereas in multicellular organisms like higher plants, like animals, like human beings, ये सारा जो activities होता है, सारा जो functions होता है, processes होता है, there are specific well-defined systems for such processes. जैसे कि human beings में we will talk about nutrition, we will talk about plants का nutrition, and so forth in the coming classes. Nutrition can be defined as the process of acquiring food that is needed for the nourishment and sustenance of living organisms. It can be defined as जब न्यूट्रिशन के बारे में हम बात करते हैं तो ये बोलेंगे कि जो पोषण ऑर्गेनिजम्स को मिलता है जिसकी वजह से वो ग्रो करते हैं, वो फ्लरिश करते हैं और वो अपना बॉडी का सारा प्रोसेसेस करते हैं, वो न्यूट्रिशन, उसको हम न्यूट्रिशन कहते हैं. So there are modes of nutrition. There are two modes of nutrition which are the autotrophic mode of nutrition, as you all know, and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Heterotrophic mode of nutrition, right? So we have been learning about autotrophic mode of nutrition ever since 7th class, 8th class, so you know about it, but to have a more advanced level of knowledge, let us talk about autotrophic nutrition. Let's say in plants, when autotrophic nutrition happen in plants, it is with the help of light, so we call the plants photoautotrophs. All right, photoautotrophs means, auto means to make their own food by themselves, troph means to feed. All right, so when plants make their own food with the help of light, they are known as photoautotrophs, right? Likewise, we have chemoautotrophs. Chemoautotrophs are those organisms, there are many organisms, there are few bacteria which make their own food with the help of chemicals. These organisms are mainly bacteria which live in very deep sea vents and very extreme conditions. They live in very extreme conditions and they can make their own food with the help of chemicals like inorganic substances, and they convert them into their food. So such organisms which can make their own food with the help of chemicals are known as chemoautotrophs. And we have examples of many bacteria which live in extreme conditions. They live in extreme conditions like deep sea vents, extreme environmental conditions. Environmental conditions and like deep sea vents. All right. So these organisms can make their own food with the help of inorganic substances. Okay, but we will discuss about photosynthesis. We will discuss about photosynthesis in little more detail in the coming classes. And we have heterotrophic mode of nutrition. The another mode of nutrition is heterotrophic nutrition, the mode by which organisms acquire their own food. So since we know that autotrophic mode of nutrition in organisms can make their own food, but in heterotrophic mode of nutrition the organisms are not able to synthesize their own food. They are dependent on other organisms for their own food. For example, us human beings, right? But we have other subtypes of heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and we can divide. We can say that we can also talk about saprophytic mode of nutrition, saprophytic mode of heterotrophic nutrition. We have parasitic mode of nutrition, and we have Holozoic mode of heterotrophic nutrition, about which we will discuss in the next section. The first topic we will discuss in the mode of nutrition is photosynthesis, of which we have discussed a bit earlier in autotrophic nutrition. In the autotrophic mode of nutrition, the plants can make their own food with the help of a process known as photosynthesis. All right, photosynthesis. Photo means light and synthesis means to make. All right. So in plants, it is a very important process by which food is being made. All right. And plants, with the help of light and water and carbon dioxide, can make their own food. All right. Plants have a very important pigment in the leaves, which is known as chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a very important pigment which is required for the synthesis of food. All right. And without this, photosynthesis won't be possible. So there are 3 steps which occur in photosynthesis. First step is when light is being absorbed. In the first step, light is being absorbed by the chlorophyll. All right. And then in the second step of photosynthesis, what happens is the light breaks down the hydrogen and carbon in water. Oxygen in water. This hydrogen further, in the third step, the hydrogen further reduces the carbon in carbon dioxide, and makes carbohydrate, which is glucose, mainly glucose. All right, carbohydrates, which is mainly glucose, and it is given by the formula C6H12 and O6. Alright? The whole process of photosynthesis can be summed up in the form of this equation. The equation here, we have carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, of course, the pigment. Glucose is formed and oxygen is formed as a byproduct. This glucose is the source of food for plants and all other organisms. Chlorophyll is a very important pigment for the photosynthesis of plants, and also carbon dioxide is very important for plants also, which enters the plant with the help of a small pores known as stomata. Stomata are present on in the plant's leaves, mostly on the underside of the leaf, and these pores help in the exchange of gases. Alright. Now, as you can see in the diagram, there is a guard cell. This is a stoma, which is a singular of stomata. Now, when we talk about stomata, as you can see that this is the enlarged view of a stoma. There is nucleus, there are chloroplasts, which are always present in a plant cell, right? And the vacuoles, vacuoles of a plant cell are enlarged. Then there is this guard cell, and you can see the stoma, the pore here. The pores are guarded by guard cells. These guard cells helps in the opening and closing of the small pores. This is an enlarged view of a pore of stomata, and the guard cells help in the opening and closing of stomata by shrinking and swelling. Alright, now why is the closing and opening of stomata important? It is important because when there is no exchange of gases taking place, the water should not be lost by the plant. So for that matter, the stomata needs to be closed and open, and it helps. The guard cell helps in the opening and closing of stomata. Now let's discuss about heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Heterotrophic mode of nutrition is that mode of nutrition in which an organism is dependent on another organism for their food. Okay? For example, human beings, animals, they are all dependent on other organisms, mostly plants, for their food. Alright? So in this mode of nutrition, let's talk about saprophytic mode of nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition. Saprophytes are those organisms which live on the dead and decaying matters, right? All the organisms which depend for their food and nutrition on the dead and decaying organisms are known as saprophytes, all right? And for example, we have fungi. All the fungus, they depend on the dead and decaying organic matter for their food and nourishment, so they are known as saprophytes, and the mode of nutrition is saprophytic nutrition. All right. In these organisms, the food is digested outside of the body and then absorbed later on. Such mode of nutrition in saprophytes, the food is first digested on the outside of the body and then absorbed afterwards. All right. And the next mode of heterotrophic nutrition is parasitic nutrition. Parasitic mode of nutrition. You all know what parasites are, right? Parasites are those organisms which live on other organisms for their food and nourishment, and also on their expenses. मतलब वो उनको harm पहुंचाता है और उनसे nourishment लेता है. Right? For example, we have organisms that live on the body and outside of the body. Some organisms live on the outside of the body and they are known as ectoparasites. Some organisms live on the inside of the body and take all the nutrients from the host organism. Ectoparasites, for example, we have leeches which live on the surface, on the outside of the host organism. The host organism are those organisms from which these parasites take their nutrition and also cause harm to them. All right, and then we have endoparasites. Endoparasites are those parasites which live inside of the body and take nutrition from them and causes harm to them. Like they live on the other host organism on their expense. उनके खर्चे पे वो रहते हैं, वो उनसे खाना लेते हैं और उनको harm भी पहुंचाते हैं. Such organisms are known as parasites, and this mode of nutrition is known as parasitic nutrition. And we have examples of endoparasite, ascaris, which live in the small intestines. We have endoparasites. There are other plants which live on other plants and take nutrients from them, causing harm to them. And they are, for example, there is Cuscuta plant. These plants live on other plants and derive the nutrition from them, also causing harm to them. This type of nutrition is known as parasitic nutrition, which is a part of which are types of heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Next, we will come to Holozoic mode of nutrition, which is also which also comes under heterotrophic mode of nutrition. All right. So the Holozoic mode of nutrition, what happens is the organism takes the food as a whole. All right, the food is taken as a complete whole. For example, human beings. For example, we have the example of amoeba, which is a single cell organism, and in this organism Holozoic mode of nutrition takes place. All right. So what happens in Holozoic nutrition is that when the food is taken, it passes through various steps, which are the ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. Okay. So when you see in this diagram about nutrition in amoeba, it is a unicellular organism, and when the amoeba senses a food particle, there is a pseudopodia. Pseudopodia are temporary arm-like projections, and these food particles are engulfed by the pseudopodia into the body of amoeba. Now the amoeba, this is the ingestion, the step which by which the amoeba takes the food in is known as ingestion. All right, and the next step is the digestion step, which occurs when the food particles traveled through the body in the form of food vacuole. In the food vacuole, the food particles are trapped and it passes through the body, and the next step is absorption. The food is absorbed by the cells, and then next comes the step assimilation. These all are part of Holozoic steps of Holozoic nutrition. Assimilation, the nutrients are assimilated by the body of the amoeba, and then when the undigested particles, the food vacuoles opens to the outside, and the egestion of undigested food takes place. The food particles, when it is engulfed by the pseudopodia, this process is known as phagocytosis. All right. So amoeba, in amoeba, the whole process of taking in of nutrition is Holozoic mode of nutrition, and then when the food is engulfed, the pseudopodia takes the food in, and this process is known as phagocytosis. Another example of an organism that takes their food through Holozoic mode of nutrition is of paramecium. Paramecium, right? So this is also a unicellular organism, and it takes the food through the help of their structures on the body, which are called cilia. It engulfs the food through these structures, and the food is engulfed by the oral groove. Oral groove. The food, which as in amoeba we have seen that the pseudopodia engulfs the food. Here the cilia helps to engulf the food, and the food enters the body through oral groove. Right? The food in the form of food vacuole, the food vacuole travels through the cytoplasm, and the digestion and absorption and assimilation, all the processes takes place. Now this process is known as cyclosis. As in amoeba we have seen that the process of food the process of taking in of food, it takes place by the process called phagocytosis. Here the process is known as cyclosis, right? In paramecium, the food travels in the cytoplasm, and when the undigested, there are some food is digested and there are some undigested food left, that is taken out with the help of small pore known as anal pore. Okay, so this is the types of examples of holozoic nutrition in unicellular organisms like amoeba and paramecium. Okay. Next, we will talk about a complex organism which are human beings. We will talk about nutrition in human beings, and when we talk about nutrition in human beings, we all know that human beings have a very complex system. We have different organs for which perform different functions, right? So, when we talk about nutrition in human beings, all the processes, the complex processes and the complicated nutrition system comes to our mind, right? There are the main alimentary canal. The digestive system in human beings have alimentary canal and digestive glands. Okay, in human beings we have alimentary canal and digestive glands, which together perform the function of nutrition, okay, in human beings. There are 5 stages in human nutrition. These 5 stages in human nutrition, as we have already talked about in Holozoic mode of nutrition. The 5 steps are ingestion in which food is taken in, digestion, all right. In ingestion, food is taken in, then digestion happens, then absorption, and then assimilation. Assimilation happens in the body, and then all these functions are taken carried out by various organs in our body, and then egestion of the undigested food material takes place. All right. So, the ingestion, digestion and egestion takes place in the alimentary canal, absorption and egestion takes place in the alimentary canal, while assimilation occurs in the whole body. Okay?